Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're stepping right into a philosophical storybook to explore the brilliant mind of Blaise Pascal. Now, you might know Pascal as a renowned 17th century French mathematician, but he was also a man who was deeply concerned with the human soul. He looked around at society and saw a world completely consumed by aimless distraction, people who were just utterly indifferent to the ultimate questions of life, death, and eternity. So to wake up this spiritually apathetic world, he devised one of the most famous and honestly most frequently misunderstood arguments in history. We're going to unpack his famous wager, see exactly how the mechanics of it work, and discover the massive theological twist he hid right at the very end of it.
Okay, let's dive right into this. I want you to imagine standing at a grand cosmic crossroads. You're just standing there, and you are forced to make a choice. You see, Pascal recognized a fundamental human dilemma. Human reason alone simply cannot prove if God exists. We are finite creatures, right? And as classical theology points out, the finite just cannot comprehensively grasp the infinite. We don't have this perfectly clear God's eye view of the universe. But here is the catch. Despite this lack of absolute mathematical certainty, you can't just refuse to play. By simply living your life, you are already placing a bet on whether God exists or not. You are wagering your very life.
So, since we're all forced to play this giant game of life anyway, Pascal decided to speak to the people of his time in a language they perfectly understood, the language of probability and gambling. He took this ultimate, lofty choice and framed it as a mathematical bet, bringing those abstract ideas firmly down to earth. At its core, Pascal's wager is really a philosophical cost-benefit analysis. He argued that even without absolute, undeniable evidence, just basic prudence and pure rationality demand that we calculate the stakes. It's a profound attempt to show that belief in God isn't just some blind leap into the dark. It is, mathematically speaking, the most rational, logical choice a human being can make.
To really wrap your head around the mechanics of this, think of it like holding a storybook golden lottery ticket. I mean, let's be real. In the real world, lotteries often prey on people. They offer an infinitesimal chance of winning in exchange for your hard-earned cash. It's essentially a voluntary tax on people who are bad at math. But Pascal's wager? It is the exact opposite. It's the ultimate golden ticket because it costs almost nothing to hold, but the potential payout literally defies all earthly economics. You are risking something incredibly small and finite, your brief time here on Earth, for a prize that is absolutely infinite.
Let's actually break down that math and look at the risk versus the reward. If you bet on God's existence and you win, meaning God actually is real, you gain everything, an eternity of heavenly bliss. That is infinite gain. But what if you bet on God and lose? Like what if there's nothing after death? Well, you've lost very little. You might have given up a few fleeting earthly pleasures, or maybe you lived a more disciplined life, but your loss is ultimately finite. On the flip side, though, if you bet against God and you are wrong, you face an infinite loss, eternal separation from God. So mathematically, risking a finite loss for an infinite gain is literally the only logical bet to make.
But here's where we hit a bit of a wall. Critics are quick to jump in here, and the wager faces some really heavy pushback. First off, critics point out it ignores other religions. Like, which God are we even betting on here? Second, they argue it makes religion look like a cold, crassly self-interested risk management strategy. It turns faith into a superficial, get-out-of-hell-free card. And finally, there's the psychological critique. Belief is not a voluntary choice. You can't just flip a switch in your brain and genuinely believe something just because the math says it's a good deal. I mean, close your eyes right now and try to just choose to believe the sky is green. You can't do it.
Now, here is where it gets absolutely fascinating. Let's look at Pascal's true intention, which is captured beautifully in his famous quote, "The heart has reasons that reason does not know." The surprising truth here, Pascal completely agreed with his critics. No way, right? But it's true. He never believed that a purely calculated, self-interested bet could genuinely save a soul. He knew that true faith involves the affections, it involves the heart. Our epistemology, or how we actually know things, is deeply tied to our desires. If your heart doesn't want God, your brain won't simply logic its way into true faith. Pascal completely understood that we don't just need new information, we need our very desires oriented toward the truth.
So the crucial takeaway here is that the wager was actually designed as a psychological shock. It was never meant to be the final destination, it was the starting line. Step 1, shock the indifferent mind. Pascal wanted to grab the wealthy, apathetic merchants and socialites of his day by the shoulders and say, look at the stakes, wake up. Step 2, by realizing these infinite stakes, the heart's desires actually begin to change. You start to want it to be true. And step 3, this new desire sparks an active, genuine search for truth.
The wager doesn't magically produce faith. Rather, it cures apathy so that you finally begin to actively seek God.
And as our journey through Pascal's logic reaches its final threshold, we face the ultimate theological twist. Pascal frequently contrasted two ideas, the God of the philosophers and the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jesus Christ. Human calculation, cost-benefit analysis, logical wagers, all of these only get you to the door of the philosopher's God. They point to a necessary, unmoving first cause of the universe. But logic alone cannot get you inside into a relationship with a personal God. Making the bet is literally just the first step. Because human math, it just isn't enough for salvation.
To actually receive that infinite reward and stand in the presence of a holy God, the seeker must realize they need something way beyond their own intellect. They must rely entirely on divine grace. As classical theology highlights, human beings just cannot bridge the gap to the infinite on their own. We have what's called a soiled soul. Our nature is corrupted, and no amount of clever gambling or risk management can clean it. Grace is God's favorable disposition taking the absolute initiative to reach out, wipe clean that soiled soul, and complete our nature. The wager's true purpose is simply to wake you up to desperate need for this grace.
Making the bet, then, is really just about orienting your life toward that grace. It brings to mind a profound insight from the early church father Augustine. We believe in order that we may know. Now, this is the exact inverse of how the modern world thinks, right? We usually demand absolute 100% knowledge before we'll commit to belief. But both Augustine and Pascal understood that faithful surrender actually comes first. It is the commitment, the wager of your life, that opens your eyes to true knowledge, allowing divine grace to enter and fundamentally transform your heart. Which brings us right back to where we started, standing at that cosmic crossroads. Pascal's wager is not a crass mathematical trick. It's an urgent, deeply loving invitation that challenges the deepest parts of our humanity. It strips away all our excuses and forces us to look at the immense, eternal value of our own lives. And it leaves us with a profound question. Will you settle for aimless distraction, just spinning your wheels until your brief time runs out? Or will you take the wager, actively pursue the ultimate prize, and seek the grace that finally awakens the soul? The choice, as Pascal reminds us, is entirely yours.